Okay, good morning and welcome to a class in the portion of the week. I'm coming to you from Doral, Florida. I'm at the JLI retreat. That is, they have a retreat over here of 6 days of learning. I just got here. I'm going to be here for one day. And part of 1,000 Jews, over 1,000 Jews here, have come for a 6-day learning period. Really beautiful and great opportunity that they gave, especially to all of us in South Florida, to come to a day of study. So I hope that to those that have not signed up, they should sign up for next year at least to be part of this program, the JLI retreat. The JLI is a multifaceted Chabad organization that does classes throughout the world. And actually, the class that we're doing right now is a class from the Jewish Learning Institute that have put together this class for studies. So it's a Sikh of the Rebbe. It's a beautiful Sikh of the Rebbe today on a beautiful concept in Jewish law. And you're going to really enjoy it. And I think you're going to learn something great from it. So we're going to start the class. If you don't have the book, you'll have to just listen into what I'm saying. If you have the book, we're going to page 51 in the book. So we start off with a statement of the Barbanel. The Barbanel says the following statement. Ein kibbutz b'nei adam, every human society requires laws. You can't have a society that has no laws. What is the advantage? So the question is, if every society has laws, what's so special about the Torah law? What's so special? What's so special about Jewish law? If we can go to civil law, we live in America. What's wrong with American law? And why do we need to add extra law? I'm not talking about the laws between man and God, because that society putting on tefillin, American law is not going to tell you, and keeping Shabbos, American law is not going to tell you. So I'm not talking about the laws between man and God. Self-understood. Those laws, we cannot go to American law or to any law where you live. But laws between man and man, which the Torah gives off so much space to and so much time to, the question is, why do we need that law? Why is it, what's so important about Jewish law? When we have civil law, thank God we have courts and we have law and we can go to regular law. So why is there a need for what is the beauty of Jewish law? I mean, that's the question that Barbanel asks. What is the advantage of God's Torah law over the legal system set up by other nations? What's so special about it? Why does the verse state, these are the laws? In portion of Mishpatim, in the book of Exodus, it says, these are the laws you should set for them. And the Torah goes through all legal laws between man and man. Why do we need that for? Why can't the Torah say, if you have a problem, legal law, go to court. Go to the courts that's in your neighborhood. Go to the court that's in your country. Go to the Supreme Court. Thereby telling us that these laws are unique, divine system, exclusively given to us by God. And that's why Rashi, if you remember the Rashi of that verse, Rashi says that really, when it comes to even civil law, a Jew should first go to a Jewish court. He should go to a Jewish court because that's the law he should follow. So the question is, Barbanel asked the question, what's so special about Jewish law? Why do we need Jewish law when it comes to the concept of basic civil law? Why is there a need for Jewish law? So the Rebbe, there's a beautiful verse in this week's Parsha. It's such a beautiful verse that there are so many interpretations and meanings to this verse in this week's Parsha. In your text number 2, and you're going to be fascinated by what the Gemara says we learn from this verse. One of the interesting laws between neighbors. One of the fascinating laws of the Torah we learn from a verse that the Torah says as follows in text number 2, which is this week's portion, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 18. It says, and you shall do what is proper and what is good. Be'enei Hashem, in the eyes of God, you should do what is proper and what is good. Hayashav v'hatoiv. Hayashav means what is proper. Hatoiv means what is good. Leman yitavla, in order to be well with you. Uvasa v'yerishta saretz, Atayva, and you will come and inherit and possess this wonderful land, which God has promised your fathers. That's the verse, chapter 6, verse 18 of this week's Parsha, this week portion of Parsha Classs. Now, what does that mean? What is the meaning of the statement, you shall do what is proper and good? What does that mean? I should follow the law. I should be a model citizen. What is the meaning of the statement, you shall do what is proper and good? And what does it come to teach us? So the Gemara says as follows. What is the meaning is proper and good? It's not telling us we should be model citizens and we should follow the law, whether it's the law between man and man or whether it's the law between man and God. The Torah wants to tell us an interesting law, and that is the law of a bar mitzvah. I said a Gemara, I said an Aramaic word because it's a Gemara terminology. Bar mitzvah means a neighbor. And like a good neighbor, who is my neighbor? My neighbor, the laws of neighbors. What is the laws of neighbors? There's a law in Jewish law that if I have a neighbor that is living next to me, or I'm living next to my neighbor, we're doing that both together, we live together next to each other, and I come to sell my house, he should have the first right of buying my house. The law of a neighbor that I had, that my neighbor has the right, he should have the right of first buy. And if he doesn't want to buy it, then I can sell it to somebody else. That's legally, I can sell my house to whoever I want to sell it to. Why do I need to go to my neighbor first? I should be able to sell my house to anybody I want. No. Therefore, the Torah tells us you shall do what is good. You shall do what is proper and what is good. So let's look at the Gemara. This is the Gemara. This is a very, very deep law. The law by Metzer goes into many, many concepts. We're going to just touch a small part of this law. So this is a law in Baba Metzia. It's text number 3a. It's the Gemara. The Gemara says as follows. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rab, one who takes possession of land that is located between the land of brothers or between the land of partners is impudent. He's a chutzpah. It's a disgrace to buy land. So the Gemara is talking about the purchaser. The purchaser, the one who buys it. The Gemara condemns over here the purchaser. He's not condemning the seller. He's condemning the purchaser. The purchaser has no rights. It's a disgusting thing to do, to go and buy land next to another person's land for inconveniencing them. But we don't remove him. If he bought it, he bought it. So Rabbi Yehuda says, he bought it. What do you do? Legally. You get what you do? He paid for it. He paid what the guy wanted. He bought the land. You have no right to push him off the land. But we don't remove it. Or Nachman said, we even remove him. Comes up Nachman and says the opposite. We throw him off the land. We tell him to leave. But if the neighbor complaint is due to the law of the right of refusal, but if the neighbor says, I want you to leave because of this law, we don't remove the purchase. We tell him, no, he has to do it on his own, in essence. He has to become, the Nachman says, you cannot force this law upon him. He should leave. I mean, the court can force, but the guy, the neighbor cannot force. If the neighbor comes and says, I want the land because of this law, we don't do it. Interesting. So that's the machlekes, that's the argument. Comes the law. What's the law? That's the Gemara. So the Gemara introduces us to a concept of a neighbor. What's the law of a neighbor? I have a neighbor selling the land. The guy sells it to somebody else without my knowledge. Can I come and say, wait a second, you didn't give me the right you didn't give me the first rights of buying. You didn't give me that right. I'm your neighbor. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the sale is a sale. According to Nachman, if I went to come and complain, the court would have come and throw the guy out and asked me if I want to buy the land. But now that I come and complain, we won't follow the law. We won't throw you out. Comes Maimonides in text number 3b, page 53 of your book, and says the law. When a person sells property to someone else, the owner of the property, neighboring his, has the right to pay the purchase price to the buyer and remove the buyer from his purchase. So the Rambam writes that a person, the neighbor can come and pay the price, whatever the purchaser bought it for, comes and pays that price, and he throws him out of the property. This applies whenever the original owner's agent conducted the sale, or wherever the property was sold by the court. Either way, the privilege of a neighbor is granted. Even if the purchaser was a Torah scholar, a non-immediate neighbor, or a relative of the seller, while the neighbor was an unlearned or learned person with no family connections to the seller, the neighbor receives the property and may remove the purchaser. So the Rambam writes, the halacha, according to Jewish law, that if a guy sells his property even to his uncle, and the neighbor, because of this law, the law of Abba Metzra, a neighboring property, the neighbor can come and buy him out. Come and say, you bought the land for $100,000. Go to the buyer, to the seller, give him the $100,000 or give the buyer the $100,000 and get him out of the property. This practice stems from the charge, and you shall do what is proper and good. So here the Rambam writes, what is proper and good is a law. It's not just a good statement. The Gemara, it sounds like you're not a nice person if you don't do it. Comes the Rambam ultimately paskins in law that this statement, you shall do what is right and what is just, is a law, and the law is that the guy needs to be, if the neighbor wants to buy it, the neighbor has the right to buy it, and that's it. Because of this verse, our sages said, since a sale is fundamentally the same, it's more proper and good that the neighbor acquire the property than the person living further away to buy it. So that's it. Since it's my neighboring property, it's a property near me, it belongs more to me as a neighbor than to a family member or to a friend or to somebody else. For some reason, the law of the Torah, you shall do what is good and what is kind, in essence, goes above legal law. So it's more what is right to do what the right thing, or to do what is right. So when it comes out to here, the Sisa Vayashav, the godly law, divine law, Torah law, doesn't give us a concept to do what is right. No, be good people. Don't try to buy out somebody else. Don't try to outrun somebody else, especially this law of a neighboring property. Don't try to run out somebody else's property when that guy's living there. Let him buy the property to build his home, to make his home bigger, or to make his property bigger. Why would you force this guy, if he wanted property, to go buy someplace else property? That's just not right. If a guy is living next to a property, he should be able to be the one to grow his property right near his property. And it's being sold, a sisa yoshavate. Now, in legal law, this doesn't stand. This doesn't stand in legal law. I'm allowed to sell my property. Anybody else is allowed to sell the property to anybody they want to sell it to. And if they sold it, the sale is a sale. Comes the Torah, it says, you know what? You're right. Legally, it's a sale, but you haven't done what is proper. You have not done what is proper and what is right. And therefore, you're going to have to live relinquish your right. You're not going to lose money. You're going to get back your money, but you're going to get back your money and you are going to have to move on and find property someplace else. Asisa hayoshavate. So it comes out that this verse in the Torah and the Barbanel tells us that this is where you see the difference. In essence, here you see what means Torah law. Torah law is not just do what is legally right. Torah law is to do the right thing. That means even if I've done something legally right, I'll give you the example. If somebody makes a contract with a guy, he makes a contract with, and this happens constantly in contracts. A guy makes a contract with person number one, person A, for 850, let's say you'll pick a big number so you'll understand it, $850,000. And then he gets another option. He gets another guy comes forward and says, I'll give you a contract for $1 million. I'll give you a contract for $1 million. What will any lawyer tell him to do? Take the $1 million contract. Give the guy back his $800, break the previous contract. You'll give him back his $850,000. Even if you have a penalty of $10,000, you still made the money. You gave him back his money. He didn't lose his money in contract A. And now you still made $150,000. So what? So you broke contract A. That's the way it goes. You got your penalty. You paid your money. You still made money. And the Torah will tell you, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's not important the guy made money or the guy didn't lose money. That A didn't lose money. That's not the point. Asisa yashav. You need to do what is proper and good. And you made a deal with guy number A. You need to follow through your deal. Oh, but I can make $150,000 more with B. And I'll break the contract with A. The contract A didn't lose any money. So what does it bother him? I made money. He didn't lose money. But that's not asisa yashavate. That's not proper. That is improper and it's good, and you're not allowed to do that in Jewish law. So therefore, it's not only what's legal comes to Torah in this week's portion. Comes to Torah and tells us no. Sisa ayashavate. So therefore, Rashi, in the law of Bar Metzah, look in text number 4 if you have it. Rashi says, what you shall do, what is proper and good. This doesn't affect you much because you can find line elsewhere rather than inconveniencing your neighbor by causing his property to be scattered in different places. That's the not nice thing. The neighbor can extend his property. So you tell him, oh, you go buy property someplace else, but it's right near his property. Why would that neighbor, if he has the capability to buy more property, why should he buy property someplace else if he can buy property near him? And therefore, if the guy near him wants to sell the property, he needs to have the right to buy the property. And if the thing was sold under his nose without his knowledge, he has the right in Jewish law to come forward, pay the price that was paid, and move the guy off the property. This is the law by Metzah. So, as I said, it's just the shell of the law. There's many, many intricate parts of this law. And it would be a class itself in the law of a neighbor, law by Metzah. It's many different levels. But this is the general principle. So therefore, the Barbanel, which I started off this class with, says in text number 5, the reason for this is that the divine law contains elements absent from other legal systems. There's something missing. You might have legal law, you might do what is right, but there's a missing link in every law. And God's laws is based on a principle of higher or greater than law, and that's compassion and goodness. Law can be sometimes not so good. And therefore, the Torah tells us that even though you're legally right, but you're not doing good. And if you're not doing good, then you shouldn't do it, even though you might be legally right. Beautiful teaching, beautiful concept in this week's Parsha, Sisa Yoshev Atayv. You can take this concept of a Sisa Yoshev Atayv. We should do what is good and proper. You can take this concept in any aspect of life. We're going to go a little bit broader over here into this law. And by understanding the law of why a neighbor, the truth is, why should a neighbor come first? What is the background in the thought in the Talmud that a neighbor comes first? And maybe by understanding this concept of why should a neighbor come first, we'll understand deeper the aspect of this law and the spiritual, really, we're trying to find the spiritual component of this law. What is the spiritual component of this law? So let's go a little bit deeper in the law, okay? The Rebbe, this is the Rebbe Sikha, this Lubavitch Rebbe is teaching on the law. So we introduce you to the Lubavitch Rebbe in this text number 6. The Lubavitch Rebbe says, because the Rebbe wants to go deeper into the law and to actually bring out the soul of this law. And the Rebbe says we can look at this law in 2 ways. We can look at the law in 2 ways. Let's look at the Rebbe's words, and I'll explain to you. Geder din b'metzra, the neighbor first right, that's the law, first right, the neighbor's first right. A first refusal can be explained in 2 ways. We can understand this law in 2 ways. It's important if you have a question, you ask us. It's a little technical, this, but it should be understood easily. So we can look at this, the Rebbe says that we can look at this law in 2 ways. Number one, the first approach is it's only a matter of the proper and good behavior. It's about the purchaser. The one who buys it, the purchaser should be a mensch. We are worried about the menschlichkeit of the purchaser. We're not, the seller didn't do anything wrong. He has a right to sell his property. It's his property. So he has a right to sell his property. But it's the purchaser. It's the problem with the purchaser. It seems like the purchaser did something that he shouldn't do. He's not a mensch. He went and he bought something that he shouldn't have bought, right? So really, that is a sale between a seller and a buyer was completely valid, right? Law is law. I'm not to sell my property. I sold my property. It's that the purchaser didn't do the right thing. It's just that the sages require that the buyer, one who purchased the buyer, to behave in a proper and good way. So therefore, the Gemara says, I'm not condemning the seller. What did he do? He sold his property. Whether he's going to sell it to the neighbor, he's going to sell it to somebody selling his property. But the buyer, what's on the buyer? The buyer, even though he bought something legally, but he's pasha and no mensch, he did something that's not proper. And therefore, it's unfit for his behavior, and he needs to give it back. He needs to sell it back to the neighbor. He needs to sell it to the neighbor. Therefore, he must grant ownership of the property to the neighbor. That's it. He has no choice, because even though he did something legal, he didn't do the proper thing. That's one way of looking at it. In essence, the seller is not involved. The seller is not involved. The neighbor is not involved. The Gemara is all told, the Talmud is talking about the buyer. The buyer basically was not correct. Or we can go deeper. Why does this property belong to the neighbor? Why does this property? It's not only about the buyer, it's about the seller and the neighbor. Why does this property belong to the neighbor? And the answer is, we consider, so the Rebbe brings down a statement of Rabbi Yosef ben Chaviva. He was a great rabbi in the times in the 1400s, I think, times of Ran and Rif. And he says, we consider the neighbor as though he has a degree of ownership, interest in the property itself. Listen to those that don't have the book. Listen to these words, okay? It's in English. I'm saying it really in Hebrew. We consider the neighbor that is living next to this property as though he has degree of ownership, interest in the property itself. So it's not only about the buyer. We can look up at Metzer. Why did the buyer did something wrong? The buyer did something wrong because it belonged to the neighbor already. It belonged to the neighbor as a neighbor. The Torah says, in essence, that why a person is living in this property and he's living next to somebody else's property, because just like when he buys a property, the property that he buys, he has some connection to it. It's not only the money that he bought, he has some physical connection to it. So to the property near him that he has not yet even bought and he might never buy. He has some connection to that property. So look at the words of the Rebbe, according to this interpretation. The second approach the Rebbe says is an obligation to do what is right and proper creates a certain ownership interest in the field, which the neighbor acquires. When somebody is buying a property and it's next to somebody and he knows he's buying a property, it's near somebody, he needs to think about, wait a second, not about only the seller who has a part of this property, he owns the property. There might be a neighbor that because he's a neighbor, he has some interest in this property. Even before it is being sold, he has some connection to this property. So when the purchaser is compelled to grant ownership of the field to the neighbor, it's not just because his personal obligation to do the right thing, because to a certain extent, the field rightfully belongs to the neighbor. In the words of the Mukha Yosef, which we just said, it is as though he has a degree of ownership interest in the property itself. So we can look at this at two ways, by Metzer, the law by Metzer. If we want to go more deeper into the law, we can look at it as that it's just on the buyer. The buyer of Asisa Yasha, you shall do what is proper and what is right, is really basically a principle on the buyer. Or we can look at it more. It's not only a principle on the buyer, it's a concept on the seller. The seller and the neighbor, that the seller and the neighbor are neighbors, that they are neighbors, they automatically have an interest in each other's property. They automatically have some kind of a ownership interest on each other's property. And that's the law. And that makes a big difference, the way we're going to understand the law. It's more than just that the buyer needs to be something special. In essence, and that's why the Rambam, that's where we can understand why the Rambam, Maimonides, says he's very strict on this law. Because in essence, it's almost like you're taking away somebody else's property. And therefore, even though, so in essence, the Rambam say we go, this, they should do what is proper, it's good. It's not that the good statement, be a good person. No, it's law. You're in essence, not just that the buyer is not a mensch, but he did a legal act. In essence, he didn't do a legal act in a way. Asisa Yashav Atoiv, you should do what is proper and good. Because you're taking away the interest of the neighbor in this property. He had an interest in this property even before he said he had an interest. So in essence, the only way that a person can buy a property that is by a neighbor is only when the neighbor says, I have no interest. Because if he doesn't say so, there is an instinct incest. There is some kind of an interest. Now, this is a very hard law. This is a very difficult law. As I said, I just giving you the broader aspect of the law. There's many intricate and debates and laws of how ultimately this law is translated in Jewish law. But this is the beauty of the law. And as you can imagine, if you know the Rebbe, how the Rebbe is going to bring it into what it means to us, what it means to all of us, the concept of a neighbor, the aspect of responsibility to a neighbor, to another person, whether he lives in a person that lives in your neighborhood, in your city. But the Rebbe says that this law is also translated into another beautiful Jewish law in the concept of a neighbor. As I explained, said many times, in the world, there are three things: Olam, Shana, and Nefesh, right? The concept of the world, the physical world, time, Shana is time, and soul. They all come together. They're all supposed to unite together: time, space, and soul. Torah, soul of a Jew, purpose. So we just explained the concept of neighbor in space. Like a good neighbor, your neighbor that has a home next to you. What's the concept of a neighbor in time? There's a concept in Jewish law of neighbor in time. It's a beautiful aspect, and it's something that you should know and something you should do every week. Every week we have a concept of a neighbor in time, and that is Erev Shabbos. We have Shabbos and we have Erev Shabbos, the neighbor in time. We always should add from the week to the Shabbos, because Friday, as we come closer to Shabbos, is the neighbor to Shabbos. And therefore, there's a connection between Friday and Shabbos. There's not only a connection in a second that we go from Shabbos to Friday to Shabbos, there's a connection in Friday itself. And that's why there's a concept in Jewish law to add from the weekday to the Shabbos, that they should be good neighbors. We should be able to bring Shabbos in earlier. We should start Shabbos earlier. Question is, how much earlier can you start Shabbos? How much earlier can you bring Shabbos earlier? So let's look at this beautiful concept that the Rebbe brings down. They're taught in the Brisa, text number 8, it's page 57 if you have the book. This is a Gemara. The Gemara is a Talmud. The Rebbe brings down a Talmud. The Talmud says it's taught in the Brisa. The verse states, "And you shall afflict your soul on the 9th of the month." It's 2 months. We're coming up to Yom Kippur. It says, the verse says in Leviticus, "You shall afflict your soul on the 9th day of the month." Now we know that Yom Kippur is not on the 9th day of the month. It's the 10th day of the month. We're not fasting the 9th day and the 10th day. We're fasting the 10th day. So there's a big problem with this verse, right? It says, "You shall afflict your soul." You can go Leviticus chapter 23, verse 32. It's the verse. "You shall afflict your soul on the 9th day of the month." So one might have thought, the Gemara says, that one should start to afflict oneself on the 9th of Tishrei. We should have 2 days of Yom Kippur. We should fast on the 10th day and on the 9th day. Therefore, the verse states at evening. So the verse states at evening. Okay, so the Gemara says that's beautiful. The verse states at evening, that the fast starts at the evening. So it's not the 9th day, it's the 9th day at the evening. Now, if the Torah had stated only at the evening, so the question is, why would the Torah not state the 9th day at the evening? Why did the Torah say the 9th day? The Gemara is not happy totally with that answer. So the Gemara asks the question, Talmud asks the question, why does it say the 9th day? It should have said the 9th evening. So if the Torah, the Gemara answers, if the Torah would have said at 9th of the evening, one might would have thought that the fast starts only when darkness falls. Therefore, the verse states on the 9th, on the 9th day. How can the verse be reconciled? One should begin his fast while it's still daytime. That's why we say that the fast of Tisha B'Av is 25 hours. It's a 25-hour fast. It's more than a day. It's more than just the 10th day. It's at least an hour into the 9th day. So we start the fast an hour before night. Shkia, like that's the time when we light the candles. If you light the candles out of Yom Kippur, it's 18 minutes before that. So it's 25-hour fast. We start the fast in the 9th day. We don't start it early in the 9th day, but we start the fast in the 9th day. And from here we derive that one extends the non-sacred weekday to the sacred day of Yom Kippur. We add at least an hour from the 9th day, which is not a sacred day, to the 10th day, which is a sacred day. So good neighbors add, in essence, Yom Kippur has taken time of the previous day. It has become part of the previous day. This, and the Gemara continues, this only teaches us we must extend Yom Kippur at the beginning. How do we know that the obligation also applies to at the end of Yom Kippur? The verse states, on evening thieves. How do we know we don't extend the Yom Kippur an hour after Yom Kippur? We don't. The second, you all know, the second the shofar is heard in the synagogue, everybody runs to go break the fast. We don't add any time from evening, because the Torah says openly, from evening to evening. So the second it becomes evening, it becomes the 3 stars are seen. It evening, the fast is over. So we add to the 9th day, not to the 11th day, so to say. This only teaches us we must extend Yom Kippur. How do we know that it applies to other festivals that we should add? The verse continues, you shall rest, to teach us that the rule applies to even festivals, which one is commanded to rest. This teaches us only that we must extend festivals. How do you know on Shabbos? The verse says in the same place, your Shabbos. How so? Every place the term says rest is stated, it teaches us that one sanctifies and appends from the non-sacred weekday to the sacred. So therefore, we all bring in Shabbos at least by Shkia, by sunset, not by sunset. That's a good half an hour, 45 minutes, depends where you live, before the night. Women light their candles 18 minutes before sunset. So they bring in the Shabbos even earlier. And I was just in London, and Shabbos comes in there at 9, nighttime comes in like 9:50, that's that week. And we brought all in Shabbos at 7:30. So we all brought in the Shabbos at 7:30. Most Jews in the area brought in the Shabbos at 7:30. So so you're allowed to really bring in the Shabbos, what's called, I'll just say the law, Plag HaMincha. Plag HaMincha, today, for example, over here, is like an hour. Plag HaMincha is like 6:38, so it's like an hour and a half before sunset. That's when it's really the time of the end of the mincha. And you're allowed to do an hour and a half before that. It's like 3 hours. Comes out like 3 hours before night, you can bring in Shabbos. So 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. Yeah. 2.5, so like 2.5 hours. You can bring it in 2.5 hours, 3 hours before night, you can bring in Shabbos. You can't bring him before that. So like in Boca, really, in Florida, in Boca that I just said, Plag HaMincha is 6:38. Add another hour and a half to it, you would be allowed to bring in the Shabbos 5 o'clock. 5:30. Like at 5:30, you can already bring in the Shabbos. That's the law. So I can add to the Shabbos a good 2.5 hours, 3 hours before the coming of the Shabbos. And there are communities who have a custom to bring in the Shabbos anyway. Bring in the Shabbos earlier. Let's bring in Shabbos earlier. And that's a beautiful thing. That's being Mosif. I'm adding my Metzah, my in time. I have 2 neighbors, the Friday and the Shabbos. And the Shabbos, I want to add from the time of my neighborly time of Friday, I want to say it's connected to the Shabbos Ray. So I want to bring in that connection. Now that's an interesting concept, because the question is, I can understand that you can say I can bring in the Shabbos, for example, I'm going to say it's Shabbos, so I'm not going to do any prohibitions. But the real question is, especially when it comes Shabbos, if I'm bringing a Shabbos at 7:30 in London, let's say, or 5:30 here in Florida, I'm going to decide to bring in the Shabbos on 5:30. The question is, I can understand that I'm not going to do any prohibitions. But how am I allowed to make Kiddush? That's really the question. How am I allowed to make Kiddush? I'm going to say, Yo, Mashishi, that this day is holy. It's not holy. It's still Friday. So the question is, how is it possible in Jewish law to say, to do the positive commandments? I can decide not to do the negative. I'm not going to do any work. Okay, so I'm not going to do work on a Friday afternoon, on a Friday at 5:30, 6 o'clock. But how am I allowed to do the positive? How am I allowed to make Kiddush? That I'm saying that it's Shabbos. It's not Shabbos. It's still light. It's still light outside. So it's not Shabbos really. But I'm allowed to do that in Jewish law. I'm ultimately allowed to do that. Until that time, I'm allowed to do that. That shows you that the truth is that this neighbor, this concept of being a neighbor on Shabbos, this concept is more than dust. Oh, the dust like, oh, the neighbors. Friday and Saturday are neighbors. No, there's some connection. Shabbos has a connection to Friday afternoon, late afternoon. Shabbos has a hold on it. It is already connected to it. And since even though it's still Friday, there's some aspect of connection between these two neighbors, between the Friday afternoon and the Shabbos. There's some connection in the law, in all levels. And therefore, if I bring in the Shabbos earlier, I'm going to do, not only I'm not going to work on Shabbos, I'm going to do all the laws of Shabbos. I'm going to make Kiddush. I'm going to eat the Friday night meal. And I'm going to have the Suda Shabbos. It's going to be considered the meal of Shabbos, even though it's still Friday legally. So let's look at the Rebbe says. There's also in text number 9 on page 59, there's also a matter of neighbors of time. Before and after Shabbos is a neighbor and adjacent to Shabbos. Here too, we can frame the issue in two ways. Number one is so much as time before Shabbos is adjacent to Shabbos, it is transformed and acquires the holiness of Shabbos itself. This is the degree of ownership argument that it becomes, that's the ownership. Shabbos owns Friday. It belongs to Friday. And therefore, it's not just, they're just neighbors. There's a concept of ownership between them. And number two, we can look at it. Time does not acquire the wholeness of Shabbos. That's the first way that we looked at neighbors. Rather, because it's adjacent to the time of Shabbos, a person has the obligation to start preparing for Shabbos during that time. This argument that there's no inherent neighbor right, but the buyer is expected to do what is right. So therefore, according to this understanding, you can take upon yourself the Shabbos, and therefore you're prohibited from doing any prohibited laws, but it's not really Shabbos. And you cannot sit down and make Kiddush, and you cannot sit down and have a meal for Shabbos. You're not allowed to do any work on Shabbos, but you're not allowed to prepare you're not allowed to make a meal now. You can't sit down and make Kiddush like it's Shabbos, not. But that's not the law. The law is, as he says in text number 10, the Alter Rebbe writes, the rabbis have said that one may make Kiddush and eat a meal from the time of Plaga Mincha, 1.25 before sunset and onwards. With this meal that takes place while it's still daytime, one fulfills the obligation, and one of the three obligated Shabbos meals. And so much as the person already accepted Tosefos Shabbos, the extra Shabbos, upon themselves, it has become like Shabbos for them in every. So therefore, the law is ultimately that you are allowed to start the Shabbos earlier, and it becomes Shabbos to you in all aspects, in the negative and in the positive. So I'm not allowed to do any more malach, I'm not doing any more work, and I have to make Kiddush, and I have to eat the first meal of Shabbos, and I accomplished the first meal of Shabbos. I might have accomplished the first meal of Shabbos even before it became night. And I've done the first meal of Shabbos. So there we see the concept of neighbors in time. So we have the concept of neighbors of place. We have the concept of neighbors of time. And ultimately in soul, we are all neighbors. And that's the way the Rebbe ends this sikha, that the concept of how we are ultimately all Jews, our neighbors. So we all know in text number 11:1, the Gemara, the Medrash speaks about how the Jewish people encamped even in the desert. How did they encamp? The Levites encamped around the Mishkan, and with Moses and Aaron and his sons to the east, as is written, camp in front of the Mishkan, to the east were Moshe, the keeper of the charge of the sanctuary. Next to them was the tribe of Judah, Yisachar and Zebulun. Based on this, the sages say, fortunate is the righteous one, and fortunate is his neighbor. There are three tribes that were near Moses and Aaron, became great scholars. Regarding Judah, it's written, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the student of the law between his feet. Until Shiloh comes, and to him with the gathering of people. So Yehuda, who was a neighbor to Moses, became great kings. Regarding Yisachar, it's written, and the sons of Yisachar, of those of outstanding times, to know the Israel should do, their chiefs were 200, and their brethren obeyed their words. They established halacha based on their words. Yisachar became great sages. They had a great neighbor. Regarding Zvulun, it's written, and out of Zvulun they handled the pen of the scribe. Great scribes came out of Zvulun. The scribes, because they were neighbors, they became Torah scholars. Again, they were neighbors of Moshe Rabbeinu. They were neighbors of Aaron, the high priest. Have a good neighbor. It's important to have good neighbors. And the south was sons of Cos, and next to them were the tribe of Reuven, Shimon, and Gad. Based on this, our sages say, woe is to a wicked, and woe is to his neighbor. These three tribes were neighbors to Korach, who stemmed from Kahas, and his band of the south, destroyed with him in a quarrel. As the earth opened up its mouth and swallowed them and their houses and all the men that were in Korach and all their property. So therefore, have a good neighbor. A good neighbor is not just somebody who's living next to you. A good neighbor is somebody who you're going to have some relationship with. And it's important to have a good neighbor. And therefore, the Rebbe writes, Maimonides says in text number 12, it is natural for a person's character and actions to be influenced by their friends and associates and to follow the local norms of behavior. Therefore, a person should associate with the righteous and be constantly in the company of the wise, as to learn from their deeds. Conversely, one ought to keep away from the wicked and who walk in darkness, so not to learn from their deeds. This is implied by Solomon's statement, one who walks with the wise become wise, while one who's associated with fools will suffer. Similarly, it's written, happy is one who's not followed the vice of them. A person who lives in a place where the norms of behavior are evil and the inhabitants do not follow the straight path should move to a place where the people of the are righteous and follow the path of good. And the Rambam continues in text number 12b. If every similar place for those that I've heard about follow improper paths, as in our times, or if they are unable to move to a place with our proper patterns of behavior because of the present banned raiding troops or the health reasons, they should remain alone in seclusion. As written, let him sit alone and be silent. He should go close himself up. If the locals are wicked and sinful, they're not allow the person to live there unless they mingle with them and follow their evil behavior. Person should go into the caves, thickets, and the desert rather than follow the path of sinners. As written, who will give me a lodging place for the wayfarer of the deserts? So therefore, a person should, the Rambam talks in the negative way, and now that self-understood negative and positive way, try to be near a good neighbor. It's better to live in a cave in a desert than to live near bad people. But the Rebbe says, I'm going to teach you something, this whole thing in more of a spiritual sense. In text number 13, in the simplest sense, the law of a neighboring rights a first refusal obligation, a person to go against his nature, to give up a field that they have purchased, so as to avoid hurting or even inconveniencing another person. That's the realm of avoiding evil. How far does the Torah want you to think about somebody else? How far does the Torah think how you should be a good neighbor? To think about somebody else. Not that most of us think I'm not hurting somebody. I'm not hurting somebody. As long as I'm not hurting somebody, everything is wonderful. But that's not the good neighbor. A good neighbor is not only that I am not hurting him. A good neighbor in the Torah is a sisa, a yashavata. You shall not only not hurt him, you shall think how to make it good for him. You shall think how to make it easier for him. So here, when a guy comes to buy a land, and he can buy the land legally, but here he knows that there's a person living right over here, and he could buy it, and for him to buy it, why should he buy it if I can buy it? But for him to buy it would be more convenient. For him to buy it would be more better for him to buy it than for me to buy it, because his land is right there. So therefore, it will be not only it'll be convenient, it'll be a success for him. Always think about somebody else. That's a good neighbor. Not only not hurting somebody else, taking advantage of somebody else, but to be able to think about somebody else. That I am going to do something that I am legally allowed to do, but I'm going to think about that other person, how I can make it better for him. That's a sisa hayashavate. That's the concept of a good neighbor. We are all in the third level of soul. We are all here as a concept to be here for each other, to help one another. We need to think about not only Hashem not hurting each other and not bothering each other. How do we make it for somebody else more convenient? How can we bring for somebody else convenience, happiness, joy? A sisa yashavate. He's my neighbor. He's my Jewish neighbor. How can I, in which way, and in what kind of an atmosphere, and in what kind of an avenue can I bring about to help another person? That's what the Torah wants us in this passage. Be a good neighbor. Be a neighbor that cares about that other person. Not only that, as I said, Kim was saying this, not only that I'm not going to hurt that other person. I'm not going to, I don't, like some people say, I don't want to be, don't be my friend. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. No. We have to think about ways of sisa hayashavate. How do I be able to make it better on somebody else? How can I make it that person should have more convenience, and that other person could have more success, and that other person should have more connections? Conversely, the law of adding to Shabbos and Yontif concerns the Rebbe of doing good. It's about increasing matters of Shabbos and Yontif, which means an increasing of goodness and holiness in the world. That's what we have to look at. We don't have to look, we have to look, how do we increase, whether it's between two neighbors, so the Rebbe says, whether it's with another person, or whether it's in the world. How do godliness? And that's a good neighbor. A good neighbor doesn't say, I'm not going to do bad to the world. No, a good neighbor says, how am I going to make this world a lighter, holier world? And that's what I do every Erev Shabbos. I bring in the Shabbos earlier, because Friday is a good neighbor to Shabbos, and Shabbos is an unbelievable neighbor to Friday. That they come together and they bring extra Shabbos into the day. That teaches us we should be able to bring more light into this world, because light is a neighbor to this world. Eid Hashem, the light of God, is the right neighbor to this world. The Chachma is not only to have light in holiness, but how do you make it a good neighbor with everything else in time and space in the world? How do we bring the concept of making things more holier? How do we bring more godlier, better? How do we bring these two concepts to be true, wonderful, and beautiful things? And that's the beautiful teaching of the Rebbe today, self-understood. We should always keep this pasuk in our minds. Asisa hayasha v'atoiv. A person should always think about those things in life, not only to be right, but to do what is right. We always, we're legally right. We have the right, but to not only to be right, but to do what is right. And that's when whenever we're in a situation, we should always think about this verse of this week's parsha. Asisa ayasher v'atoiv. Meaning, can I go be better than the law? Can I go greater than the law? Do I have the capability to be better than thus what is legally right? What I'm right? What I'm right or wrong? Do I have the capability of bringing holiness, going higher than what is above the letter of law? We learn Pirkei Avos, beyond the letter of the law, where everything that I do is only the law. I only can accomplish the law. And I can't go higher than law. As long as I'm right, I will do it. And the Torah says, that's not what I need. That's not the Torah law. The Torah law is not being right. The Torah law is being sisa hayasha v'atoiv, is being proper and good. And as we mentioned before, the Abarbanel says, the difference between legal law, they follow the law. Everybody, we have the law on the books. We follow exactly what's written in the law. We have no compassion. There's no love. There's no compassion. There's no feeling. It's all the law. And a Jew needs to go beyond the letter of the law. When it comes to the concept of being good and proper, we should all try to go beyond the letter. I wish you all a wonderful day, a happy day, healthy day, beautiful Sikha of the Rebbe. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. We'll continue our Chitas of the day at 8 a.m. Have a wonderful and beautiful day. See you next Tuesday.
So, thank you. So I think you may have created